Thanks for listening to the story on Black Stories 365. I hope you have an enjoyable, moving listening experience. Charleston's afternoon fell like an amber curtain. After a long, impeccably polite farewell that bordered on suffocating, Evelyn Hart stood on the steps of St. Philip's Church, watching the oak canopies draped with moss-like threads stitching the gray sky. Hands had been shaken, condolences spoken, white bouquets perfumed the air, all repeating the same truth. She was on her own now. Southern convention tells people to be strong in silence, and she had done that for 40 years. But the salty wind slipping through the hem of her black cardigan made her suddenly feel cold somewhere very deep, where no one could see. The driver offered to take her home. Evelyn shook her head. "I'd like to walk a bit." She turned down the old cobblestone streets. Late autumn Charleston smelled of sweet tea, tidal water, and rain still clinging to brick walls. Grief, when wrapped in scent, lost some of its sharp edges. At the third corner, a low, nagging hunger reminded her she hadn't eaten since morning. A flickering neon sign reading, "Open 24 hours" caught her eye. Harbor Light Diner. The glass door was fogged with steam. Inside were green vinyl booths, a bar of gleaming stainless steel, and a coffee machine hissing like an old cat. The bell over the door chimed as she pushed in. "Welcome. Would you like a table or the counter, ma'am?" That voice. Evelyn paused almost imperceptibly, the way you do when your foot hits a stair you thought was one step lower. A woman's voice, warm, with a faint nasal lift at the end of the sentence. And a habitual little catch right before "ma'am." As if the speaker had sung in a church choir and learned to breathe where others didn't. "A table, if I may," Evelyn answered, hearing her own tone a shade too composed. The young woman led her to a booth by the window. "I'm Maya. I'll bring water first. Would you like tea or coffee, ma'am?" The "ma'am" fell very softly. And with it came an uninvited fragment of memory, a churchyard, in the summer of 1976, laughter, the slap of a young man's loafers on brick, and a bright tenor voice carrying amazing grace up into the oaks. "Caleb." Evelyn blinked, as if to blow the dust off that name. "Hot tea," she said, "and a slice of lemon cake, if you have it." "We do, ma'am." Maya smiled, her brown eyes deep and steady. Up close, Evelyn noticed the faintest weariness at their corners, the kind you get when you've worked late shifts for many nights and still have to rise early because someone needs you. The teapot came with a heavy cup, steam rising, fragrant and gentle. "Would you like honey with that, ma'am?" Evelyn shook her head. Maya set down the plate of lemon cake, then stepped back politely. The widow looked out through the glass. Outside, rain had begun to tick on the panes. Inside, there was the clink of cutlery and an old country song playing on a small radio. She tasted the cake tart, with zest, the frosting just sweet enough. Unthinking, Evelyn listened to Maya laugh with the patrons at the next table. The laugh wasn't loud, but it was true, and at the end it had that little catch like a comma. For the first time that day, Evelyn felt the corner of her mouth lift. When Maya returned to top off the water, Evelyn asked, "Do you sing in a church choir?" Maya looked a touch surprised, then smiled. "Yes, ma'am. I sing at Mount Zion A.M.E. on Sundays." "You could tell?" "I used to sing," Evelyn ventured, "a long time ago. The way you breathe reminded me." Maya tilted her head, intrigued. "Yes, ma'am, our pastor tells us not to swallow the last syllable, so I do a light cut to keep the note rounded." "I was taught the same," Evelyn said softly. The conversation drifted. Maya spoke of storms washing out the roads. Of her grandmother Lorraine waiting at home with her favorite game show. Of the diner oven working at half capacity so the chef was grumpy. Evelyn found herself oddly charmed by the everydayness of it. Like someone who has escaped a crowd and wants to sit by the kitchen and listen to the spoon tap the pan. "I'm sorry, I've gone on today." "You look like you've had a long day." Evelyn set down her cup. "I've just come from my husband's funeral." Maya tightened her grip on the order pad, her eyes softening. "I'm very sorry." "Thank you, dear," Evelyn replied gently, the endearment slipping out before she could stop it. Maya didn't mind, she simply nodded. "If you need anything, just wave." When it came time to pay, the bill felt light in her hand and heavy all the same. Evelyn left cash, added a generous tip, and wrote with a fountain pen. "The best lemon cake I've had this year. Thank you for the conversation." She signed, E. Hart, hesitated a beat, then added her landline number, an old-fashioned habit from someone who never quite took to texting. Maya read it and looked up. "Thank you. Drive safe, ma'am, it's pouring." "I'm walking." Evelyn smiled. "Then let me get you an umbrella." Maya disappeared behind the counter and returned with a navy blue one, old but sturdy. "This belongs to the diner. But consider it a long-term loan from me." Evelyn accepted it, wanting to say something kinder than thank you. She only managed, "Your voice reminds me of someone I once knew." Maya tilted her head, lashes flicking. "I hope it's a good memory." Evelyn said. "A very good one." Rain slapped her face as she pushed back onto the street. Moving slowly beneath the oak arches, Evelyn opened the umbrella and listened to the rain whisper like letters written across the shingles. She thought of Caleb, of a long-ago summer, of a letter never sent because her parents had said too much about future. Standing, family. She thought of Maya's gaze, calm yet deep, like canal water at dawn. That night Evelyn couldn't sleep. Wind lifted the white curtains, wedding photos stood quiet in a corner. She opened an old wooden box at the bottom of the wardrobe, some college snapshots, concert tickets, a blue ribbon faded to silver, and a worn photo of the summer choir of 1976. Caleb stood in the back row, white shirt, slanted smile. She set the picture on the table and sat for a long time. The next morning, Evelyn returned to Harbor Light Diner, as if it were the most natural thing to do. The rain had passed. Post-storm air is always clear as glass. The place was quiet. Maya was wiping the counter. When she saw Evelyn, a plain, unhidden gladness lit her face. "You came back," she said. And the simple joy of it eased Evelyn by half a notch. "May I have you try the pecan pie today?" The chef baked it a touch too long, the kind of too long Southerners call just right. Evelyn laughed, a small sound, but distinct. "I'll risk it." When the pie came out, Maya set it down and hesitated a moment. "Would you like to hear something?" She unlocked her phone and played a choir recording from the previous evening. The harmony flowed in, warm and full, and within it a woman's voice rose bright, with that slight catch at the end, holding the note perfectly round. Evelyn touched the table's edge, as if finding shore. "It's beautiful," she said. "Thank you." Maya wavered. "I hope this isn't odd, but you remind me of someone in one of my grandma's stories. She used to be a private nurse for a wealthy family on the East Bay. She said the mistress of the house was kind and very proper. Like you." "What was her name?" Evelyn asked, her voice shrinking without her willing it. Maya looked out the window, as if sketching memory with her eyes. "Grandma rarely said names. But I remember two initials on a handkerchief she kept in her Bible. E.H. The spoon in Evelyn's hand stopped. Outside, the harbor water mirrored a freshly laundered sky. Inside, the radio slid into "His Eye is on the Sparrow." Evelyn looked up and studied Maya for a long moment, not the way one appraises or probes, but the way someone regards an old map and recognizes a road they thought was lost. "Maya," she said, "would you be comfortable calling me Evelyn?" Maya smiled. "Of course. And are you free this afternoon? I'd like to invite you and your grandmother, if she's able, for tea at my home. Nothing formal, I'd just like to hear your grandmother's stories, about nursing, about those earlier years." Maya blinked, then nodded, slow but sure. "My shift ends at 4, I'll ask Grandma. She loves tea and ladyfingers." "So do I." Evelyn smiled. She didn't know why her hand trembled as she poured more tea. Perhaps because, for the first time in a very long while, she was about to open a door no one else could open for her. When Evelyn left the diner, Maya stood in the doorway watching her go, the little bell chiming overhead. In the booth against the wall, an elderly couple looked at each other and smiled, the sort of smile that says they've witnessed something warm they can't quite name. And out on the street, the wind had shifted. The moss on the oak branches leaned eastward, toward the place where the tide moves in and out each day, carrying salt, and old stories waiting to be told again in a gentle voice. That morning, Charleston was as clear as a pane of glass freshly wiped with dawn's mist. Evelyn Hart stood before the mirror, fingers grazing a button. After more than 40 years of living under gala lights and razor-edged spotlights, she had never felt as unsure about what to wear as she did now. It was only a simple afternoon tea with a diner waitress and her grandmother. Yet her hands still trembled as she chose a beige cardigan over a black blazer because what she wanted to bring today wasn't power, but memory. The Cadillac rolled over brick-laid streets and turned into a small lane by the bay. Maya's house was modest, with a brown-tiled roof and a porch lined with red geraniums. When Evelyn knocked, it wasn't Maya who opened the door but a tall elderly woman, back still straight, eyes a deep coffee brown. "And you are?" The voice trembled slightly yet kept its southern cadence. "Evelyn Hart, your granddaughter invited me for tea." In that instant, the older woman's eyes widened as if catching a familiar melody. "Good Lord. Evie?" The sound of the nickname hit Evelyn like a door long locked suddenly thrown open. Only Caleb had called her Evie and sometimes his close friend, Lorraine. "Lorraine Johnson," Evelyn whispered. "Is it really you?" They stood quiet a beat, then burst into laughter, the shaky laughter of two people recognizing they had outlived whole decades. Lorraine opened the door. "Come in, Evie. Well now, life does have a knack for arranging things." Inside smelled of pecan pie and resin. Maya was brewing tea, and at the sound she came out, startled to see the two women embracing like old family. "Grandma, you know Miss Evelyn?" Lorraine looked at her granddaughter. "Not just know her, child. She was your granddaddy's best friend." The air seemed to still. Evelyn set down the teapot and looked at Maya, the smile flickered out, a question kindled in her eyes. "You mean?" "I mean Caleb Johnson," Lorraine said softly. "Your mother's father." Evelyn's heart tightened, the name from Lorraine's lips felt like a wound touched lightly. "Maya, I knew him once. We sang in the choir that summer. He and I were very close." "Very close?" Maya echoed, her voice mixing curiosity and caution. Evelyn nodded gently, neither denying nor dodging. Silence draped the room, broken only by the tick of a clock. Then Lorraine chuckled, warm and gravelly. "Evie, let me put on more tea. We've got more to say than coffee could carry." They sat around a small wooden table, its scarred surface rubbed to a shine. Jasmine tea perfumed the air. Lorraine told the story. After Evelyn was forced by her parents to part from Caleb, he left town to teach music in Savannah. In 1982, he met Helen, Maya's mother. They fell in love, but Caleb died young in a car accident. Helen, pregnant with Maya, died a few months later from postpartum complications. Lorraine had raised Maya ever since. "She's what remains of the two people I loved most," she said, eyes resting on her granddaughter with pride. Evelyn sat hushed. Those years she'd been in Paris studying art, then married Richard Hart, a union of status and fortune. In her heart, Caleb had stayed a bright, unquenched streak. And now before her sat the daughter of that man, an invisible thread that fate had patiently kept intact. "Miss Evelyn," Maya asked, "what kind of person was Caleb?" Evelyn's smile was soft as a breeze skimming an old roofline. "He sang as if he had the whole sky in his chest. He liked to say, 'A voice is how God measures the heart.' When he looked at someone, he always looked all the way inside." She paused, swallowing tears. "I still remember the last day. He said, 'One day, music will bring us back.'" Lorraine laughed gently, tapping her cup. Maybe he was right. The afternoon tilted, the last rays slid through the curtains and traced Maya's face, those eyes, that bridge of the nose. Features so familiar it was like looking into the mirror of the past. Evelyn wanted to say something but the words caught. When she left, Evelyn handed Lorraine a small envelope. "Inside is my phone number. If either of you need anything, please don't hesitate. I don't want to lose anyone again." Lorraine smiled, her gaze warm and sad. "Evie, you never truly lose people. You just haven't found the right moment yet." On the drive home, Charleston's lights had come on. The car ran along the Ashley River, and the water mirrored the street lamps like a string of memories being rehung. Evelyn cracked the window and breathed in the sea air. The old loneliness stepped back, replaced by a lightness like a musical phrase waiting to be played in the right tempo, by the right person. Across town, Maya watched her grandmother study an old photo of young Caleb and Evelyn. Grandma. Was she the one who hurt him? Lorraine shook her head. No, child. Back then people let prejudice do their thinking for their hearts. Now God sent her back not to judge, but to forgive. Maya fell quiet, fingers tightening around her cup. Inside her, something began to move small but steady, like groundwater beneath long-parched earth. As for Evelyn, that night, she sat by the window and wrote in her notebook. Caleb, today I met your granddaughter. Her voice is uncannily like yours. Perhaps we still have a chance to say what was left unsaid through her. She closed the notebook and gazed toward the lighthouse where the beam winked like breathing. For the first time in 40 years, she was no longer afraid of the dark. The early wind off the bay blew in carrying the smell of salt and damp wood. Evelyn sat in her home library, the mahogany desk strewn with papers and old photographs. She had spent the whole night rummaging through the boxes of memory she had avoided for years. When the first light came through the window, she opened a yellow envelope labeled Savannah 1977, and her elderly hands began to tremble. The letter had never been sent her own handwriting, the ink already smudged, the first line reading, Caleb, if my parents knew I was writing this, they would be furious. But I have to tell you that I have not forgotten you. Evelyn read softly and then stopped, drawing a deep breath, forcing down the swell of emotion. She folded the letter and pressed it to her chest as if holding a fragment of her youth's remaining heart. When the doorbell rang, she knew it was Daniel Pierce, her college friend and the family's longtime attorney. Daniel came in silver hair, tall, still carrying the calm of a man who has witnessed many lives come apart. Evelyn, he said. I got your message. What made you want to see me so early? Evelyn set the letter down, her voice even but her eyes fathomless. I've found Lorraine Johnson again. She lives in West Bay with her granddaughter Maya. Daniel stiffened slightly, a crease pinching his brow. Maya Johnson? Johnson as in Caleb? Evelyn nodded. She's his and Helen's daughter. I've met her, Daniel. She has his eyes, and the same voice. Daniel sat, silent for a moment. Slowly, he removed his glasses and polished them with a handkerchief, as if buying himself time to think. Evelyn, it may be time you heard something I should have told you long ago. He looked toward the window, his voice slow, waited. That year, when you left for France, Caleb asked me to send you something. It was a letter from him, but your father Charles came to my office before I could mail it. He took it. He said if I kept it, he'd sever every legal contract between me and the Hart family. Evelyn shook slightly, both hands gripping the desk's edge. Did he read it? He did. And he burned it on the spot. Daniel met her eyes. I'm sorry, Evie. I was a coward. I feared losing my work, my reputation. I never imagined that would extinguish two people's lives. Evelyn said nothing, only closed her eyes. The wall of memory inside her began to crumble in slabs. Caleb had written, and she had waited. They had waited for each other, only to be divided by a man named Hart. When she opened her eyes, her tears had fallen onto the unsent letter. Daniel, I want to find Caleb's letter, if any trace of it remains. Daniel nodded, voice low. I can try. Your father once had me move his private files to my old office in Charleston. The letter might be among the documents sealed after his death. I'll reopen the archives this afternoon. Evelyn inclined her head. Thank you. But I'm not searching for the past. I only want to know what he said before the chance was stolen from him. The words stirred Daniel. Evie, you know, Caleb always said he had no regrets. He said, if love is stopped by skin color, the fault isn't love's. Evelyn turned away, tears falling without a sound. She stood by the window and looked at the oak trees out front. The leaves had begun to yellow. The wind lifted a few into the air. Daniel, she said softly. A part of me died the day I let them take him away. But now, I feel alive because of a girl named Maya. Daniel smiled, sad. I haven't heard you speak of anyone like that since Richard passed. Evelyn glanced back, a faint smile crossing her face. Perhaps I'm learning to live truthfully late, but not too late. After Daniel left, Evelyn remained there, eyes following the road that led to the bay. She saw Maya, in her mind the bright smile, The voice with that tiny catch, the quick hands pouring tea. She knew she needed to see her again. Not as a customer, but as someone with a debt to repay. That afternoon, Evelyn returned to the diner. Maya was folding tablecloths. When she saw Evelyn, she lit up. "Miss Evelyn. I didn't expect you today. I came to say thank you." Evelyn sat, studying Maya closely. "I reread some old letters. You know, your father Caleb once taught me that forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's remembering without the bitterness. I think I've just understood that." Maya went still. "You knew my father?" "Not only knew him," Evelyn answered gently. "I owe him an apology. I want to tell you our story, if you'd like to hear it." Maya took the seat across from her, fingers entwined. "I do. My mother died early. Grandma told me very little. I only know he once loved a white woman. And they were torn apart." Evelyn told everything: the summer, the choir, their first kiss under the church vault, then the rainy night she was forced to leave the city. Each sentence unknotted something in her chest. Maya listened without judgment, only nodding when she heard Caleb's name. "He used to sing me to sleep," she murmured. "So Grandma says. She told me his voice was warm like early spring Sunday." "It was," Evelyn said, voice thick. "He brought light to the darkest part of me." They sat in quiet, the radio humming softly in the background. Maya spoke again. "I think he would forgive all of it. He believed every road leads to peace in the end." Evelyn smiled rarely and without sorrow. "You're more like him than you know." Maya smiled back. "I hope so." Late that night, with the diner nearly empty, Evelyn prepared to leave. Maya brought out a small box. "Grandma asked me to give you this. She said you'd understand." Evelyn opened it. Inside was an old silver ring, its face engraved with the entwined letters C, E, Caleb, and Evelyn. Her breath caught, her hands trembled. "My God, he kept it?" Maya nodded. "Grandma said he wore it all his life. When he died, they took it off and gave it to her. She's kept it until now." Evelyn closed her fingers around the ring. "Thank you, Maya. Thank you for giving me back a part of my soul." As she left, a light rain began to fall. Under the streetlights, the ring on her hand gleamed like an old promise being restored. In Evelyn's heart, the unsent letter seemed to have found its recipient: not Caleb, but the daughter who carried his voice and the bridge leading her back to the part of herself she had lost. Morning in Charleston lay like a thin veil of silver gauze. Evelyn walked slowly into the back garden, where the climbing roses were budding after the night's rain. She held the silver ring in her hand, her thumb brushing the intertwined initials. C. E. Today she had decided to visit Lorraine and Maya, bringing a small gift: a vintage framed photo of the summer choir of 1976, the only remaining picture with Caleb in it. When the car stopped in front of the little cream-yellow house, she saw Maya sitting on the porch, short-sleeved shirt on, hair hastily tied up. She was helping Lorraine sort old photo albums. Seeing Evelyn, Maya ran out, delighted. "Miss Evelyn, Grandma was just talking about you." Evelyn smiled and stepped up onto the porch. "I brought this for you both." She handed over the frame. Lorraine took it, her gaze lingering a long time on the young man in a white shirt standing beside a blonde girl. "Good Lord," she whispered. "How many years has it been?" Evelyn said softly. "I've kept it in a box for over 40 years. It's time it had a new place." Lorraine stroked the glass, her hands trembling. "I remember that afternoon, when the pastor asked us to sing His Eye is on the Sparrow again. Caleb went too high, and you couldn't stop laughing." Evelyn laughed too, her voice husky. "And we were punished by having to stack chairs after the service." All three burst into clear, ringing laughter that filled the quiet air. After brewing tea, they sat under the porch as a light breeze stirred the curtains. Lorraine began. "After Evie left, Caleb kept to himself. He didn't hate, he was just sad. He used to say, 'We are victims of our time.' When he met Helen, he found his laughter again. They married in secret, knowing neither family would accept it. But fate didn't give them much time." Evelyn fell silent, her hand tightening around the teacup. "I used to think he'd forgotten me, that he was happier." Lorraine shook her head. "He didn't forget. The night before the accident, he brought his guitar to my house, said he wanted to leave a piece of music for you. He called it The Letter Unsent." Evelyn looked up, tears brightening her eyes. He wrote music. Yes. I still have the manuscript. Lorraine stood, went inside, and returned with an old sheet, notes penned in black ink, and a line beneath. If there is another life, please let me know you by my own voice. Evelyn took the page, her hands uncontrollably shaking. Each note seemed to pierce through the hollow years inside her. Maya sat quietly, saying nothing. But her eyes followed the movements of the two older women, as if watching two halves of the same story finally close. Evelyn looked up and murmured, I want to hear this piece sung once more, Maya, could you sing it for me? Maya hesitated, but Lorraine encouraged her. Sing, child, let your granddaddy hear it wherever he is. Maya drew a deep breath and began. The sound rose plain, warm, high, carrying that distinctive little catch Evelyn had noticed the very first time. There were no lyrics, only long-held syllables, like wind passing through the oaks, like a heart opening after years of silence. When the music ended, Evelyn couldn't speak. Tears fell onto the back of her hand. Now I believe, she whispered. Music truly does bring us back. Lorraine smiled and patted her shoulder. Evie, he's been waiting for you a long time. Maybe now he can rest easy. That afternoon, as Evelyn was leaving, Maya walked her to the gate. Miss Evelyn, she faltered. I mean, thank you for not walking away after learning everything. Evelyn turned, eyes gentle. My dear, I'm the one who's been forgiven. I lived behind a shell for too long, and now you've helped me step out. Maya smiled, her eyes shining. I just hope I can give others the feeling you just described. Evelyn set a hand on her shoulder. You already have. A few days later, Daniel called. He said he had found a sealed envelope in Evelyn's father's archived files, with only one word on the front. Caleb. She went to the office that very afternoon. Daniel set the envelope before her, his own eyes damp. I think you should open it alone. Evelyn nodded, waited for him to leave, then slowly broke the seal. Inside was a folded letter. The paper yellowed but the ink still clear. The first line stole her breath. Evie, I know they won't let you read these words, but I'm writing anyway. Because love, like music, exists even when no one listens. The letter went on about faith, about the pain of being torn apart, and ended with, if there is someone who sings like you who carries your voice yet is freer, love her in my place. Evelyn folded the letter, tears flowing unchecked. She understood that Caleb had foreseen it all, and that now Maya was that message made flesh. She slipped the letter into her pocket and left the office. On the way home, she stopped by Maya's diner. The sky was about to break. The air smelled of distant thunder. Maya was surprised to see her arrive during the lull. Evelyn sat at their familiar corner table and took the letter from her pocket. This belongs to your father, she said, and to me as well. Maya took it, opened it, her eyes tracing the old lines. When she reached the end, her voice caught. He knew even this? Evelyn nodded, her voice unsteady. Perhaps he believed that true love doesn't die. It only changes form to return. Maya bowed her head to hide her tears. Then looked up with a smile. Then? We should let it keep living. Shouldn't we? Yes, Evelyn answered. By loving more and fearing less. Outside, an early autumn rain began to fall, drops drumming evenly on the tin roof, the sound merging with the radio's amazing grace. Evelyn took Maya's hand, feeling as though she were touching a piece of the past brought back to life. She knew that from that moment on, the letter never sent, the song never sung, and the love never fulfilled had all found their truest ending in the voice of the next generation. In the hand clasping hers, and in the rain washing clean the mistakes that time had left behind. The morning after the rain, Charleston's air smelled of wet grass and fresh-cut wood. Evelyn rose early, brewed a pot of jasmine tea, then sat on the balcony watching the river surface glint. She had just lived through days, unlike any before days, when a heart she thought was old beat hard again, full of life. Beside her teacup lay Caleb's letter, now set in a small glass frame. She planned to bring it to Lorraine so they could keep it together, as a relic of two lives once torn apart. In her heart, a thought was taking shape. To do something so tragedies like theirs wouldn't repeat. so people bound by prejudice would know that love doesn't need permission. She took out a notebook and, with a slightly trembling hand, wrote the first line. The Caleb and Helen Foundation, a voice for second chances. When she finished, she found herself smiling, warmth spreading through her chest. Just then, the doorbell rang. It was Maya, carrying a hand-woven basket of still warm pecan pies. Miss Evelyn, I thought you might like a light breakfast, so I brought these, she said, cheeks pink from the wind. Evelyn invited her in. They sat by the window, the light catching the silver ring on Evelyn's hand and making it shimmer. Maya, have you ever thought about studying music formally? Evelyn asked. Maya smiled, a little abashed. I have. But there's never been enough money or time. I work 2 jobs, look after grandma, and life just keeps going. Evelyn looked at her with fondness. If there were a chance, would you take it? Maya looked up, surprised. What are you saying? Evelyn set the notebook on the table. I'm establishing a scholarship fund to help young people with dreams who've been held back by circumstance. It will bear your parents' names. Maya's eyes widened. Her mouth opened but no words came. Evelyn went on. I lived half a life in silence, Maya. I want the rest of it to be for saying the things that need saying, for helping those who deserve to be heard. And if you agree, I want you to be the first recipient. Maya shook her head slightly, voice tight. You don't have to do that for me. Evelyn took her hand, old but warm. No, I'm doing it for myself. And for Caleb. He once said love truly exists only when it's shared. Maya bowed her head as tears slipped down, then she smiled. Then I accept on one condition. After I finish school, I'll work for the foundation to help others the way you're helping me. Evelyn nodded, eyes bright. That's exactly what I hoped. That afternoon they went to see Lorraine. She was knitting on the porch, listening to leftover rain plink from the roof into a tin basin. Hearing the plan for the foundation, Lorraine squeezed Evelyn's hand, eyes brimming. You really are still my Evie, only with a bigger heart. Evelyn laughed. Maybe because I let it stay frozen for too many years. The 3 of them sat together, discussing the foundation's name, the scholarship program, the small benefit concerts they could organize. Maya said she could invite her church choir to sing. Lorraine offered to bake for fundraisers. Laughter filled the porch, easy and light, as if no distance had ever existed between them. A week later, a small ceremony was held at Harbor Light Diner, the place where it all began. Evelyn rented the space for the evening and decorated it with white roses and old photographs. On the wall, a sign read, Caleb and Helen Foundation, a voice for second chances, and beneath it, in Maya's hand, for every heart silenced, a song will rise. People from the neighborhood came in numbers. The church choir joined too. Maya, in a navy dress, stood on the little stage with an old microphone. Her voice rose, gentle yet powerful. She chose The Letter Unsent, Caleb's piece, newly arranged by a friend from the band. When the last note rang out, the room held its breath. Evelyn stood in the front row, tears streaming but her smile unbroken. In that moment, she felt herself no longer a widow or a prisoner of the past, but a witness to a rebirth. After the program, Maya stepped down and hugged her tightly. See? Everyone sang with me, as if they'd known this music forever. Evelyn answered softly. Because it's in their hearts. Just as it once was in mine. The diner door swung open and the night wind poured in, carrying sea salt and far-off surf. Lorraine came over, smiling gently. Caleb must be proud, she said. Evelyn looked up at the sky, where moonlight lay on the water. I think he's not only proud, he's singing along. That night, after the guests had gone, Evelyn stayed to clean up with Maya. They turned on a small lamp, wiped each table, their laughter threading through the scrape of chairs. When only the 2 of them remained, Maya asked quietly, Miss Evelyn, do you have any regrets about everything that happened? Evelyn looked up, taking in the room glowing with the warm gold of old bulbs. No, dear. Without that past, I wouldn't be here. Wouldn't have heard you sing. Wouldn't know that love can still find its way home. Some losses are necessary to teach us to cherish what remains. Maya smiled, her gaze glimmering. Then I don't regret it either. Without those tiring late shifts, I'd never have met you. They looked at each other and laughed a light laugh that held a lifetime of understanding. When Maya left, Evelyn locked the diner and stepped into the street. Wind from the bay swept in, carrying salt and the cry of gulls. She stopped, lifted her face to the sky, and whispered, "Thank you, Caleb. We kept our promise." Somewhere in the distance, a choir's voices rose into the night, blending with the water's song. Evelyn closed her eyes, her heart as calm as a glassy river. A chapter full of hurt had closed, opening a new one with forgiveness, with love, and with faith that even when all seems lost, the human heart still finds its way back. Autumn, the following year, arrived as lightly as a breath. Charleston changed its clothes, the oak leaves turned gold. Bougainvillea bloomed pink along the narrow riverside streets. A year since the debut night of the Caleb and Helen Foundation, the city had begun to know that name as a symbol of hope. Evelyn Hart was no longer the reclusive widow behind high gates, but the silver-haired woman who always appeared at small concerts where young voices rose for those who had been silenced. She lived simply, smiled more, sometimes brewing tea for guests herself, sometimes sitting quietly in the middle rows to listen to Maya sing. As for Maya, after receiving the scholarship, she moved to New York to study music, but still returned to Charleston every weekend to join the foundation's activities. That morning she stepped out of a taxi, suitcase in hand, and as soon as she saw Evelyn she ran over and hugged her. "Miss Evelyn, I'm back." Evelyn laughed and hugged her like a granddaughter home after a long time away. "I heard you were chosen for a solo at the conservatory?" Maya nodded, joy radiant. "Yes, and I want to perform the letter unsent at graduation. I want to dedicate it to you." Evelyn paused, then smiled. "You make me very proud, Maya." Caleb would be, too. In the afternoon, they visited Lorraine at the nursing home. She had grown frail, hair white as smoke, but her eyes were still bright and keen. Seeing Evelyn and Maya, she smiled gently. "3 generations, 2 skin tones, 1 story," she said. "God arranges things well." Maya sat by the bed and sang the old piece for her grandmother. Lorraine closed her eyes, lips moving with the melody. At the end she took both their hands, her voice rough but firm. "You must keep this flame, don't let the world snuff it out." Evelyn squeezed her hand, tears falling but a smile still on her lips. "We promise." That evening, as they left the home, the sky glowed red like live embers. In the car, Maya was quiet for a while and then asked softly, "Miss Evelyn, have you ever thought about writing your story down?" Evelyn tilted her head. "You mean a book?" "Yes," Maya said. "A memoir, not to lament, but to say that love can overcome the worst barriers." Evelyn smiled, a spark in her eyes like a 20-year-old's. "If I write it, will you tell it with me?" Maya nodded. "I promise." And so they began. In the mornings Evelyn sat at the table, Maya typed, and Evelyn read in an even voice. Chapter by chapter they rewrote old memories, the choir, the summer, the letter, and the diner where the two met again. When they reached the final chapter, Evelyn stopped and looked at Maya. "I want to call it The Voice That Found Its Way Home." Maya smiled. "It's perfect." A month later, the book was finished and printed in a limited run, given to schools, churches, and community centers. People read it, people cried. People found themselves in it. Many Black readers wrote to thank them for a story that helped them believe truth and kindness can walk together. Young women wrote that they had begun to learn to sing, believing their voices had worth. Evelyn received letters every day, and for the first time she felt she was living up to what Caleb had once wished. Let music measure the heart. By winter, Lorraine's health declined rapidly. One evening Maya called Evelyn, voice trembling. "Grandma wants to see you." Evelyn came at once. Lorraine lay in the dim light, breathing as lightly as wind. She took Evelyn's hand and whispered, "Evie, I'm not afraid anymore. I can see Caleb at the door, smiling as he used to. Promise me you'll keep the foundation going. Don't let the past be the last thing people remember about us. Let them remember what we left behind." Evelyn nodded, choked with emotion. "I promise, Lorraine." Lorraine smiled, squeezed Maya's hand one last time, and passed peacefully as drizzle ticked on the porch. The farewell service was simple, with only Maya's voice lifting like a prayer. Evelyn stood at the back, silver ring in hand, feeling peace spread through her. After the funeral, she sat with Maya by the river, both quietly watching the water flow. "Miss Evelyn," Maya said. "Grandma used to say some people don't really leave, they just change seats so they can watch us better." Evelyn smiled. "I believe that." She looked at Maya, whose eyes glinted in the dusk. "You know, you make me believe people can start over any time. You don't have to be young, just brave enough to love." Maya rested her head on Evelyn's shoulder and murmured, "You gave me that courage first." The following March, the Caleb and Helen Foundation expanded across South Carolina, awarding more than 100 scholarships and free music classes. A photo of Evelyn and Maya ran in the local paper with the headline, "Two Women, One Song of Grace." People called them proof of forgiveness. And Evelyn only smiled and said, "We're just two people finding our way home." On Maya's graduation day, Evelyn flew to New York. As the strings began, Maya walked onto the stage in a simple white dress. She spoke into the microphone. This piece was written nearly half a century ago by someone who believed love outlasts every taboo. Today, I sing it for him, for her, and for all who have loved but had to be silent. Then the piano rose and Maya's voice joined the orchestra. Each note beat like Evelyn's own heart. She sat in the front row, tears falling though her smile never faded. When the piece ended, the hall rose to its feet. Evelyn laid a hand over her chest where Caleb's ring hung on a chain and whispered, "Do you hear it? Our song is still here." That night, in the hotel room, Maya handed her a new score. "I wrote a second part to the letter unsent. I've called it," the voice returned. Evelyn touched the music. "Overcome. The world needs to hear it, Maya." She laughed. "No, Miss Evelyn, the world is already listening. Sometimes it just forgets." Evelyn chuckled, a warmth like lamplight in her smile. Outside, New York blazed bright. And in the small room 2 generations of women sat together, sharing tea and a story that had traveled full circle from loss to renewal. As the streetlights spilled through the window onto their faces, Evelyn thought of everything that had once frightened her. Prejudice, time, loneliness, death. And now, none of it held power. She closed her eyes and heard Maya softly sing the old refrain. "If love was lost, let it return as a song." Evelyn smiled and answered gently, "And if that voice carries our hearts, then we have lived once more." The night was quiet, only 2 voices weaving together like 2 rivers finally meeting in the ocean. No borders left, only peace.